Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall. Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
It's the middle of the week. It's the middle of the month. It's the 15th day of May. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along. Coming up today, Nick Searcy. You ever heard his name? He's a great character actor. He's been in a number of Oscar-winning films, as a matter of fact. And Nick is behind a brand new project called The War on Truth. It's a follow-up to his first film about January 6th. This will be his first appearance on this show, so looking forward to talking to Nick Searcy. He's very Kurt Schlichter-esque, I think. So anyway, I think you'll enjoy that and hearing more about his film. Also, a brilliant economist, as the news today, and the news was not out when we spoke with him a little earlier, but the Consumer Price Index, which he does reference in this conversation, is up. So things are costing more. All the costs are rising. All the news is not good about the economy. And E.J. Antoni, our research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, will join us to unpack it all, and some new layoffs and some new closures from some major companies that, our buddy Steve Moore says is the canary in the coal mine. We'll get into that. And here's the big news this morning. It happened just toward the tail end of my show in Philadelphia. But the news is that the Husk has announced he's going to debate. He's accepted the terms of debating Trump. He says, I'll do two. He says, I'll do them in June and September. Trump immediately responded to them. I took some calls on the radio show today to see if they thought it was going to happen. Most people overwhelmingly thought it wasn't going to happen. I'll just say this about that right now. If you care to go to the Harump Society and let me know, if you're a Harumper, please head over there and post a thought in the comments section, because I'd love to read what you think about it. Is it going to happen? What do you want the format of it to be? One caller said he would love it if they just were given subjects, not leading questions, just China. 3 minutes, go. Lincoln Douglas style debate. I think that would be brilliant. Cut their mics off after 3 minutes. I would like to believe that could be run fairly, but nevertheless, will the terms of the debate actually be met for both men? Will it actually happen? I don't think Biden wants to do this personally, but I do think he was laying down a marker today. If you've seen this little video, it's 16 seconds of him anytime, anywhere. And the thing about it is, this is to stave off Democrat challengers. This is to stave off people that think he's weak and want to replace him. I actually don't think this bravado and this chest thumping today was to do anything but just kind of lay down that marker. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not giving this office up without a fight. I really do. I think this was more for the consumption of Democrats than anybody else. But anyway, Trump pounced on it right away, says he accepts. So we'll continue to follow that. I'm sure we're going to have lots more to say about that in the show tomorrow. But I have always lots to say about our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, and usmedicalplan.com. Have you gone to his website yet? Have you shopped for insurance yet? Health insurance is expensive if you buy it out of pocket. I don't have to tell you that. Everything is more expensive. We're going to talk with EJ about it in a little bit. But the thing is, are you getting the best coverage for the money you're spending? Just because you spend a lot of money on an insurance plan doesn't necessarily mean it's the best one. And just because one is less expensive doesn't mean it's subpar. Let John and his team, and he has a great team at usmedicalplan.com, call them up and say, listen, I heard Chris talking about your company. Here's the insurance I have. Here's what it costs me a month. Here's who I'm covering. And just let them crunch some numbers and say, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't think we can beat it. Or, hey, I know of this plan over here. It costs X instead of what you're paying, and it actually covers you better. Or maybe you find out that the insurance you have isn't great coverage after all. Don't you want to know that stuff in advance? I do. John and his team are so great. If you have some bureaucratic nightmare with insurance or whatever, his whole customer care department deals with it all, so you don't have to. There's nothing I hate more than dealing with bureaucratic paperwork in the course of a busy day. John and his team do it all. 877-410-4321. If you're a young person, if you're a retired senior, and you buy a supplemental plan, small business owner, you're just a working person and you insure your family out of pocket. Anybody. John helps anybody. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Have you seen the prominent Republicans now going to Manhattan and standing alongside Trump outside the trial room? You watched that, Fast Eddie?
I did, yes.
Byron Donalds was there. Let's see, who else was there? J.D. Vance made a trip there. And Mike Johnson made a trip there yesterday. So they're all standing there in this Manhattan, outside this Manhattan courtroom behind Trump. And then they go in with him. I guess he's allowed, I don't know how many people he's allowed to take in there. It's like a kick line of people. All names that we know and see, we regularly see on TV, come on these shows. Several of our guests have gone piling into that courtroom. It's kind of funny. But a lot of Republicans have decided the strategy is to go in and stand with him. And I'm curious to know if it's the Trump campaign asking for a show of solidarity amongst people like J.D. Vance, Senator Ohio. There's a big Senate race there. Is that a strategy? Is Mike Johnson benefiting oddly from going and riding Trump's courtroom coattails? What's the strategy there? I don't know. I'm asking rhetorically. What's going on there that we're seeing members of Congress on the Republican side showing up in Manhattan alongside Trump at this trial?
I mean, media, I guess they think that it is people auditioning for a VP and to show that they were there and support him.
Do you think it is for the folks back home? Like, are these Republicans calling up Team Trump and saying, hey, I want to come show my support? Meaning they want to be shown in a photo or in video for the folks back home to see they're in lockstep with the persecuted former president? Or do you think Team Trump is calling up official Washington and saying, we could really use some reinforcements here and a show of solidarity? Why don't you send some of your high-profile people to stand next to me here? Like, are we going to see Ted Cruz, for instance, there soon enough? Probably.
Yeah. Although I do think, yes, maybe to curry favor with, in their districts, their popularity. So I think they're making the call.
If that's true, I want you to consider something for a minute. That's really remarkable, isn't it? How popular is a man that he can be on trial, even though we all know it's bogus, but he's still on trial. He's about to go into a courtroom every day. He's known worldwide for being on trial, and he's so popular, other politicians just want to be seen standing next to him outside a courtroom where he's about to go in to go on trial. How many people have that kind of cachet, that kind of sway and power, that you want to be around him while he's on trial? Normally, people are running for the exits when somebody's on trial. You got a friend or a family member that gets arrested for something, and then they're put on trial. How many people show up and stand next to them at the press event or sit next to them in the courtroom? Most people say, this was a shock to me. I didn't know my uncle was that way. I loved him, and we spent many great Christmases together, but what a horrible guy, and I'm very, very sorry to all the people that he hurt, and you never have anything to do with the guy again or whatever, right? Not this case. This is amazing. Never seen anything like it. Axios, House Speaker Mike Johnson's appearance at Trump's criminal trial Tuesday is dismaying the House Democrats who saved his job less than a week ago. Aha, so I was right. He owes them something. Why it matters, says Axios. The trip is sending ripples through Democrat ranks and is already being raised in leadership circles. What the hell do they have to say about it? Or what should they have to say about it? At the trial, Johnson defended the former president from charges he paid hush money to cover up an affair with porn star Stormy Daniels. Here's some of Johnson yesterday outside the courtroom.
President Trump is a friend, and I wanted to be here to support him. I'm here speaking with you outside because the court won't allow us to speak inside the building. That's just one of the many things that are wrong here. This is the fifth week that President Trump has been in court for this sham of a trial. They are doing this intentionally to keep him here and keep him off of the campaign trail. And I think everybody in the country can see that for what it is. I'm an attorney. I'm a former litigator myself. I am disgusted by what is happening here, what is being done here to our entire system of justice overall. The people are losing faith right now in this country, in our institutions. They're losing faith in our system of justice. And the reason for that is because they see it being abused as it is being done here in New York. The facts here are very important. Facts are always important in a trial, or at least they're supposed to be. The president's actions in this matter were previously reviewed and no charges were filed. Why is that? Because there's no crime here. Now, 8 years later, Suddenly, they've resurrected this thing. They brought it back. And why is that? Well, just apply common sense. Everyone can see. It's painfully obvious that we're now 6 months out from an election day. And that's the reason. That is the reason why they brought these charges here and across the country.
The Democrats back in Washington telling Axios it's pretty clear that our preset position, saving Johnson, was a one-time circumstance because Ukraine funding was so critical. We didn't want to put him in a position where he paid a price for doing the right thing, but he'll pay the price for doing the wrong thing. Ooh, dun, dun, dun. The Democrats are pledging now, we saved your butt once because we wanted to send our graft money to Ukraine. But now you've crossed the line and going to support Trump. We can't abide that. Inserting himself into the president's criminal trial, it's unprecedented for a sitting Speaker of the House of Representatives, said one senior Democrat off the record. Ann Custer, Democrat, New Hampshire, chair of the center-left New Hampshire Democrat Coalition, told Axios, our patience will wear thin if he needs us again. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? Albeit it's a slim margin, but it's a Republican-controlled House and a Republican-controlled Speaker. Can you imagine? It wasn't too terribly long ago that we had to deal with sloppy choppers as Speaker of the House. Can you imagine reading stories from Republicans? Actually, you probably could. I guess upon further review, it's probably pretty easy. In fact, we probably could find stories that say it. But I'm imagining Republicans saying, you know what? We've stood with Nancy Pelosi on tough votes before to save her from those awful Democrats, but this is the last time. She's really pushing our buttons now. If she needs us, why, as Republicans, our patience is beginning to run thin with Speaker Pelosi. It kind of makes you feel like there's some quid pro quo here in these comments, doesn't it? I hate saying that about Johnson because I really wanted to like him. But I just find the whole thing interesting. Showing up in front. That's why I asked you rhetorically, why do you think these Republicans are showing up outside the courtroom? And so anyway, this whole story from Axios is that Democrats they're really going to make him pay for this. Representative Blaint from Vermont, people are just absolutely shocked that this is where we've sunk. The trial will absolutely be part of the calculation on a future motion to table. So the Democrats are now pledging that if the Republicans want to take another bite at the apple and remove Johnson now, why, we may not be around to help him this time. Now, I don't know if I remember correctly, but weren't there something like the vast majority of House Republicans who voted against removing him too? So can you remove him without Republican buy-in? I don't think you can. But this Axios story reads like Mike Johnson's got Democrats to thank for still having his job, and now that he's gone out there to support Trump, he may lose it. Moderate Democrats argue that a vote to table is bigger than Mike Johnson. We want to keep extremists from running the Republican Party, said Ann Craig of Minnesota. Democrats will take every issue as it comes, but if he continues to work with us on a bipartisan basis, we will work with him. Jared Moskowitz of Florida, Democrat, had a blunt, more political assessment of Johnson's actions. What choice does he have? I mean, come on. If Donald Trump comes out and says he should go, he'll be gone. So this guy Moskowitz in Florida says the reason Johnson's going over there is to make sure Trump doesn't call out the dogs. I don't know. We're going to talk to E.J. Antoni here in a little bit about a stack of market stories and economy stories, not the least of which from Wall Street Journal today. And this is one of the leading indicators. Steve Moore has told us time and again that one of the leading financial indicators in the economy is Walmart. As Walmart goes, so does the American economy. And here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal today. Walmart is set to lay off and relocate workers. You know what else I heard? And it was kind of funny because I wasn't thinking about them until last week. I drove by a Red Lobster. And I was thinking to myself, I can't remember the last time I've been to a Red Lobster. And I literally had this thought in my mind. I wonder how Red Lobsters are doing anyway. I haven't even been to one in I don't know how long. Just heard today they're closing like 90 Red Lobsters, selling off all their kitchen equipment. So I guess that answers my rhetorical question in my head last week. How's Red Lobster doing? Not well. I guess they're about to file for bankruptcy too. Walmart is cutting hundreds of corporate jobs. And get this, they're really nasty. They're going to expect people to come back to work in the office. Taskmasters. Remember the story yesterday? Biden can't get federal election workers or federal workers back to the office. Biden just can't figure out how to get everybody that's paid for by your tax dollars and mine. He's just flummoxed. All these Department of Eds and Department of Ags and FCCs and FAAs and all of their high-rise buildings, blocks and blocks and blocks of high-rise buildings vacant, all the employees that used to fill them that make up the federal government at home, working every day. And Biden just doesn't know what to do to get them all to come back. Well, Walmart's figured it out. Workers in small tech-focused offices in Dallas, Atlanta, Toronto are being asked to relocate to other central hubs like Walmart's corporate headquarters down there in Arkansas, as well as Hoboken. Did you know they had headquarters in Hoboken? And Northern California, the company said Tuesday, confirming an earlier report by the Wall Street Journal, Walmart will still allow staff to work remotely some of the time as long as they are in offices the majority of the time. We believe that being together in person makes us better, said Walmart's Chief People Officer, Donna Morris. Ugh, it's kind of a gross title. That sounds Chief People Officer. But I do agree with that. We believe being together in person makes us better. Walmart is the country's largest private employer, 1.6 million U.S. workers, most of them in stores and warehouses. Walmart has tens of thousands of corporate workers across the country. Like other companies, Walmart has gradually moved away from remote work flexibility. It's also shrunk the number of smaller offices scattered around the country. Last year, they closed 3 tech offices and asked some staff to relocate to central corporate hubs. Walmart has worked to cut costs over the past year in some areas as it gives priority to spending elsewhere. Last month, the company said it would shut all 51 of their health clinics they opened over the past 5 years as they try to build a bigger healthcare business. The clinics, often located directly next to stores, offered primary care and telepatient appointments. Walmart said last month rising operating costs and a challenging reimbursement environment make the care business unsustainable for us at this time. Laying off and relocating workers. Walmart, the canary in the coal mine, Steve Moore tells us. The economy's great. The economy's roaring. It's robust. Why don't people get that? Shout the Democrat pundits. I don't know. Ask all the shuttered and laid off Walmart and Red Lobster employees, I guess. Ask them why they don't think the economy's great. For example, and that's just the start. I mean, I have a stack of stories I've been sitting on for the last 3 days for EJ. None of them pretty. Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a 3-dimensional X-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past had referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. If for some reason you missed this earlier, it's just a delight. It's maybe one of my favorite clips of the year. The hens at the View lamenting this new New York Times Siena College poll that we read yesterday that shows Trump is absolutely thumping Biden on every issue except abortion. He is leading in all swing states but one, Wisconsin, where he's trailing by only a point. He's leading in Pennsylvania by 3. This has got heads on fire on the left. And the gals at The View are analyzing why. Why is it that Biden isn't doing well? Because, gosh, he's so great and everything's so great and their lives are so great. What the hell aren't people understanding? The conclusions they reach here are just amazing. Listen to this.
My problem is this. You did an interview with Aaron Burnett, and he said, actually, you're better off than you think you are. That's a bad message. When people's grocery prices are up by 30%, you're saying, believe me, rather than what your bank account is telling you. He's got 6 months to come up with an inspiring, forward-looking message and get out there and talk about it. And for us, I think it's important. I engage Trump voters, and I don't do it to make them feel shamed or to attack them for where they are, but to talk about what a second term could look like and how dangerous it is. I think that's how we need to be using our voices. And the campaign, the Biden campaign just has to get more active.
Yeah. Well, I would say when you say the Biden campaign has to get more active, I actually blame the media slightly. We talked last week a lot about how I don't think people are able to watch this Trump trial 24/7. Like all the time. Like it's a still shot, it's a picture of a door, it's all this stuff. Now, we're talking about we're in a campaign. We should be hearing more. We always say, why don't we hear from the Biden administration? I don't leave that all on the Biden administration's door. The media needs to cover things. For example, abortion is a winning issue for Democrats, women's reproductive health. Vice President Harris did an event last week. I couldn't find any coverage on it, and that's a Democrat's winning stance. I also think that there was an asylum regulation decided on with the border. Everyone has agreed the border's a problem. Didn't see any coverage on that because we're busy watching the Donald Trump door not opening.
And don't forget Nikki Haley. Her win. Didn't she win? Didn't she?
Oh, yeah, she got like 150,000.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, then also you've got last week, our incumbent president stepped in to do a speech on anti-Semitism. They cut to the speech, came back and talked about Donald Trump. So what's happening here is Donald Trump is Donald Trumping us. It's deja vu from 2016. And the coverage, the irony is the people covering that news thinks they're getting one up on Donald Trump while they're handing him a lot of votes because of the coverage. It's
this
ridiculous.
is amazing. This is amazing. I mean, is that not incredible? Is that is the most incredible analysis I have ever heard out of these people. Inadvertently incredible. Donald Trump's sham trial. Donald Trump being persecuted. Lawfare being weaponized and used against him in an unprecedented way against a former president of the United States. The American left, fangs dripping, to jail this man. Most Americans know it's complete horse excrement. And she says the media won't stop talking about it. What? The media's incessant talking about Donald Trump on criminal trial, she says, is just like 2016 all over again, just like 2020 all over again. The media's falling for his tricks. What? You think Donald Trump wants to be in court? You think this is some scheme? The media has been begging the public to pay attention to this and think this is hugely important, and the public clearly does not. You spent 2 weeks covering these reprobates on college campuses and were jumping up and down screaming, stop paying attention to them. That's fringe kook stuff. You got to pay attention to this criminal on trial. So they've gone back to it. Now the gals at The View say, you got to stop covering this guy on trial. Biden can't get a word in. Nobody's paying attention to old Joe. We need people to pay attention and start talking about how dangerous it would be if Donald Trump returned. How dangerous? You need to start convincing people how much more dangerous it would be if Donald Trump won. Headline, actor Steve Buscemi bloodied and bruised in New York City, assault as police hunt for attacker. Actor Steve Buscemi was randomly assaulted while walking the streets of New York last week. Midtown Manhattan. And yet another victim of a random act of violence in the city. He's okay, appreciates everyone's well wishes, incredibly sad for everyone that this has happened to while also walking the streets of New York City, his publicist said. This happened to the actor Rick Moranis not too long ago. Have you seen the cell phone and security camera footage of people just being punched, women in particular, being just clocked? In broad daylight for no reason at all. Men just coming up and punching women in the face, wrapping belts around their neck and dragging them between cars. We got to get next to voters and tell them if they vote for Trump, my God, if Trump becomes president again, it's going to be so dangerous out there. You're in danger if Trump becomes president again. Hey, jackasses, you stupid twits at The View. We're in danger now. You may not be because you can afford private limo service to and from front doors and security at your ABC headquarters. But men and women walking the streets, including famous people, by the way, even actors, famous people walking the streets of the city in which you broadcast, ladies, they're being assaulted and attacked every single day. You had men and women in fatigues, National Guard people, standing in the subways because it was getting so violent and degraded there. And you dare? This is why nobody believes you and no one trusts you, and why Trump is leading on every issue, and why you can't understand it is because you're lying to yourselves and you're lying to the American people about what we're all living and we see with our own eyes. It is not safe now in most major metropolitan cities. We don't feel safe now, and you jump up and down and you scream, "It's not safe, democracy! Democracy's under attack! Oh, Donald Trump will attack democracy! You won't be safe! You're in danger if you vote!" Hey, dip excrements. It's not safe now. We have a wide open border now. College girls are being raped and murdered now by illegals and violent felons who aren't prosecuted by a bunch of Soros-funded DAs. Your lies, your house of lies has completely unraveled, girls. And I think even women watching you, even empty-headed women who watch this dreck, are starting to look over their shoulders when they walk down the streets. It's not working anymore. People aren't afraid of democracy somehow being attacked or whatever the hell that phrase even means. They're afraid of not being able to pay for a house or pay their debts or walk safely down the street in some places. Many Americans fear being able to safely and affordably exist in this country, ladies. Whatever your manufactured nonsense is about democracy under attack doesn't mean a hill of beans to most Americans.
At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626. And if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy.
Hey, what a thrill it is to be joined by a great, great actor and somebody, if you're on X, he's a prolific poster on X or Twitter, formerly. The guy, he reminds me a lot of our buddy Kurt Schlichter. I said he's like the acting version of Schlichter. Rough, tumble, attitude, grits, and guts, and he's somebody that is succeeded in Hollywood despite his being conservative and unafraid. Nick Searcy returns. I guess, joins us for the first time, Nick. It's great to talk to you again. Hello.
Hey, Chris. Nice to talk to you.
You bet. I don't know why I've never spoken to you before. A lot of my friends in this business have interviewed you a lot, and I've always thought Nick would be a great interview, but we've never had cause to talk. But we do now because you got a new film, so I really appreciate the visit.
No, absolutely. It's perfect timing. The film comes out on Friday, and it's called The War on Truth, and it's the continuing story. It's a sequel to the movie I made in 21 called Capital Punishment, and it's a continuing story of the persecution of people who went to Washington on January 6th.
Why did you feel it important to make a film on January 6th? And I mean, by the way, the Capital Punishment, everything they told you about J6 was a lie, has been called back in 2022 the most censored film ever. So why did you feel, first of all, inclined to make it, and the response to it since?
Well, the reason I made the film is that I was there on January 6th myself, and I saw what I saw, and when I got home that night, nothing that they showed me on the news was anything I'd ever seen, and they didn't show anything that I had seen, which was 1.5 million to 2 million people singing hymns and praying for the country and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I just sort of thought, there's a disparity here we need to explore. And so that's why Chris Burgard and I ended up making the first film, Capital Punishment. And we made the second one because the persecution hasn't stopped. I mean, the government has arrested more people this year than they did last year for January 6th. They're accelerating, and it really is a war on truth. They are doing this to protect the lie that they've told about what happened on that day.
WarOnTruthMovie.com. You can also watch this at SalemNow.com, and I hope that you will. Nick Searcy was behind this film, produced it. And Nick, the thing about you that I find really interesting, you're one of the few guys that continues to succeed in traditional Hollywood while making products that definitively fly in the face of most of what we understand as the politics of Hollywood today. And I wonder how you've managed to do it. Are you just that good and in demand that they're willing to look past your politics?
Well, you could look at it that way. I really don't know. I mean, to be honest, Chris, I don't know. But I have a theory that maybe, I'm sure there are certain people who know who I am and say, I don't want to work with that guy. That happens every day in Hollywood. But I think that in my case, they may just not be paying enough attention to the other side to know what I'm actually doing. I know that when I released my first documentary, I was talking to my agent about it, and he said that he hadn't watched it. And I said, you're my agent. You kind of have to. and he said, no, he said no, he refused to watch it. And I said, well, I guess I'll have to fire you then, because I can't have an agent that won't even look at my work. That's ridiculous.
And he refused.
So I think they may not know.
Yeah, why did he say?
I'm
just curious. Like, why refuses to watch it? Because he didn't like the subject matter, or just didn't want it to poison and bias his relationship?
his exact words were, "That was an insurrection," full quote, and I don't want to hear anything else.
Oh.
So that's who the left is. They won't even dare look at my film, a lot of them, because they're afraid it might upset what they want to believe.
I mean, you've been in very recent Oscar-winning projects. That's the thing. Like, I don't mean to disparage others, but there's some names, famous names to us that may have been famous a few decades ago or something for a project, and now, kind of in their latter years, they've decided, what the hell have I got to lose? I'll come out and tell everybody I'm a conservative. You are very, at present, actively working in some wildly successful films. That's what makes you a little different than a lot of folks we talk about who are famous and conservative, but they were famous a while back. You're quite successful at present. I don't see that with many people.
Well, it may be that because I'm a character actor too. I mean, they're not going to hang the marketing campaign on me. Yeah. So it's not like they're giving me a platform by putting me in their movie. They just sort of, I've worked with a lot of people in this business after 32 years. They know what they're going to get with me, which is, I'll show up and I'll do a good job. So I think maybe that overrides things. I really don't know. I have friends all the time say, I agree with you, but I'd never say that because I'd never work again. And I said, well, I mean, maybe, but I work. I mean, maybe it's not as bad as you think. I don't know.
So maybe we're making too much of it, or maybe you just need to stand for your conviction. We've played clips of Seinfeld at the commencement, Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Chiefs, speaking out about his faith, and Biden at a commencement. And we were kind of talking about this week. Like, is it maybe just we're imagining a backlash that's not as real as it could be? Is that it? And we need to be more bold?
I don't think we're imagining it. I just don't know if we're giving them too much power. I'm sure they have feelings about what I say and do, and the movies that I make. But am I really going to give them the power to silence me because I'm afraid of what might happen to me if I say what I think? I mean, if I do that, they might as well have killed me.
Yes.
In my mind, it's like they've silenced me either way. So I just think we're giving them too much power, and there may be some short-term consequences for being honest about it. But I think in the long term, it'll turn in your favor. I get certain jobs because I'm outspoken, because people know who I am. So, I think maybe it's a trade-off, but I think I sleep better at night.
Nick Searcy's first film in this two-part series was called Capital Punishment. Everything they told you about J6 was a lie. And now the newest one called The War on Truth at Salem Now and warontruthmovie.com. It's the January 6th film that you, in this film very specifically, you want people to know even more, I assume, than the first, and I must confess that I'm sorry, but to be honest, I didn't see the first film. I will make it a point. I'm not like your agent. I want to see it. I just haven't yet. So to be clear, this is a branch of that first film, and I suppose it goes into greater detail?
Yes, it goes into greater detail, and we also follow some of the people that we profiled in the first movie who'd had their homes their front doors busted down by the FBI, 6 a.m. raids with SWAT teams, and these were people that had never been arrested for anything before in their lives, did nothing violent on January 6th, and they're being treated like these violent criminals. This continues the story of them going to jail, saying goodbye to their children. What we try to do in both these movies is really humanize the people that have been demonized by Biden and his stooges in the administration and his drones in the media. They have intentionally ruined these people's lives, and they've done it to set an example, to send a ripple of fear throughout America, to say, if you dare oppose us, if you dare stand up and say you think something is wrong, what's happening to these people is going to happen to you. And that's what we're seeing right now. It's a real strong-arm tactic, and it's definitely it's tyranny that's trying to be established right now.
Merrick Garland came out this week and said that they will not tolerate here at the Justice Department any violence directed and threats that have been made to election workers. And I
read this story with great confusion because I don't know that I've heard a single word about any violence being threatened against election workers, but it very much felt like a setup to something coming. I don't know if that's how you look at the news these days, given the projects you've been involved with, but that's how I look at this Justice Department. It almost feels like they're telegraphing what could come.
Yeah, this is what they do. They announce what they want to happen.
Yes.
What you know, so if a poll worker was attacked, who would that benefit? It wouldn't benefit the right. It would benefit Democrats. And that's what people forget about January 6th. On that day, what was happening in that chamber was exactly what the people protesting wanted to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Cruz was standing up in there and challenging the vote, and they were going to send it back to the states for 10 days to verify the vote. That's exactly what everybody there wanted to happen. Nobody there wanted to disrupt that official proceeding. The only people who wanted to disrupt that official proceeding were the people who wanted to go ahead and install Biden immediately. And that's what they did.
Nick Searcy's film is called The War on Truth. And the first one, if you've not seen it yet, is called Capital Punishment. Everything they told you about J6 was a lie. You will continue, I'm sure, to make projects like these. Your investment, I assume, in this election is pretty high. I just came off of this Wildwood, New Jersey rally on the beach with Donald Trump and, 80,000 fellow patriots. It was quite a scene. I've never felt the passion, Nick, so high and intense. It was such a happy day. Beautiful weather. Everybody was in great spirits, much like you described. These are peaceful people. They pray. They love their country. They sing the national anthem. They put their hand over their heart. It's still very real.
And those are the people that this administration, this ruling class, those are the people that are the real enemies. It's not our foreign enemies that they're worried about. They're worried about their political opponents in the United States. That's why Biden comes out there and says the number one threat is white conspiracy. He considers everybody, tries to tar everybody that went to Washington on January 6th as a white supremacist. Major enemy are anyone who votes against him. That's who the real enemies to these people are.
Yeah. Always one of my most haunting memories of Biden was him standing in front of Independence Hall saying, you want to take on the government, you're going to need a fighter jet. It's like, that's just so antagonistic, Nick. It's like they literally poke you in the chest, almost daring you, right?
Yeah, they want you. This is the hard left. They want to destroy America.
Yeah.
That's what they want. So they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're rubbing it right in your face.
And they do, and I'll let you go on this point, but I think the obvious point is to antagonize those of us who oppose them politically, to antagonize us into something physical, a physical altercation or something ugly is their desire, because ultimately then they can point to us and say, well, see, we told you they're unreasonable and they're violent.
That's exactly right. That's their strategy.
Yeah. Well, and you chronicle it well in The War on Truth, the brand new film, the second part of Capital Punishment, the first one, and it's on salemnow.com and warontruthmovie.com. Nick Searcy, thank you so much for your time. I hope we'll have you back soon. Hey, Mike Lindell and MyPillow, you know the name. 20 years they've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio, and it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed MyPillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell MyPillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand they don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the MyPillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog, Dean. They're great products. And he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee, and most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza.
getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack My Pillows, just $25. My Pillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the My Pillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast.
E.J. Antoni, our dear friend from the Heritage Foundation. We trust him on all matters economy, and he joins us again. E.J., great to talk with you this morning. Hello.
Well, Chris, thank you for having me again.
I have a stack. You know, I've kept these because I knew we were going to talk since Monday. I have a lot of headlines to blow through, and I'll just get your reaction in no particular order. All right? How about this one? Half of master's degrees have a negative return on investment. Does that surprise you? And I'll couple that with this story, federal student loan interest rates are highest in more than a decade. So long story short, my question in both those headlines is, are Americans coming to the conclusion that the college experience, unless you know very specifically what you want to go study, and you're going to go out there and earn in a profession something to pay it back, is it, a negative ROI?
Well, Chris, I think that's a really good conclusion on your part. And I mean, essentially, the other thing we have to remember here is that while you do have a lot of degrees that simply aren't worth it today, that is concentrated in these silly, made-up fields. Things like gender studies, women's studies, basically anything that ends in the word studies is going to have a negative ROI. And so as we continue to see young people flood into not STEM fields, which will get you a very good ROI, but instead these silly, nonsensical degrees, guess what? You're going deeply into debt for a degree that gets you no job other than maybe being able to flip burgers, and those are being replaced with machines right now because of high minimum wage laws, so you're just not going to have a job at all.
They say undergrads, more than 3/4, still get a positive return on investment generally, but master's degrees in particular, just 57%. A study said that the average return on an investment for a bachelor's degree is about $160K. Degrees in separately lucrative fields could top $500,000, but when it comes to master's degrees, not so much. So the higher you climb, not so much. And then, of course, given what we've seen politically on college campuses, it's, I don't know. For me, I'm so sour on college, and it's at just the wrong time, as I have 3 kids, one who just graduated, one who is graduating this week, and one who will graduate in 3 weeks. And I have to say, very unlike my parents, I am not beating the college drum. Like, they have to really kind of sell me that they want to go. And maybe that makes me a bad parent, but I am not shoving my kids into college. I'm just not doing it.
No, Chris, I think that's very wise these days, especially when you look at not only the indoctrination problems that you talked about, where we send kids off to college and instead of getting educated, they get indoctrinated. But then on top of that, you have this immense cost attached to it, and you have to realize that, okay, will I get a higher lifetime earnings if I go to college? Yes. But is it worth the massive amount of debt? Do I want to own a home, for example? Yes. But is it worth today's record high home prices along with these relatively high interest rates? For a lot of Americans, the answer there is simply no. And to go back to one thing you were saying, Chris, about how, with these master's degrees, it's a lot easier to see those negative ROIs, whereas with the college degree, it isn't. That's not to say that somehow if you get a gender studies undergraduate degree, that somehow that's a good idea. But instead, what happens is a lot of employers simply require a college degree because they use it as a proxy for things like, is this person dependable? Do they have a certain level of intellect? Do they know how to do things like meet deadlines, et cetera, right? So a lot of employers simply require a college degree, and they don't even care what it is. So that helps boost the average earnings of people with a college degree, regardless of what the degree is actually in.
From the Wall Street Journal, E.J. Antoni, stubbornly high rents prevent Fed from finishing inflation fight. Stalled inflation this year hasn't derailed the Fed's plans to eventually cut interest rates. That's because it expects a slowdown in housing costs to eventually drag inflation close to its 2% target. The problem, it's been waiting for that slowdown for a year and a half now, and it still hasn't arrived, and the slowdown might simply be delayed, but some analysts worry it's not going to happen because of changing dynamics in the housing market, and if so, that would significantly weaken the case for lower interest rates. Housing has played a large role, I should say, in the inflation fight in recent years because its costs rose so much. And then, of course, it goes on to talk about market rents. Rents on newly signed leases surged 3 years ago, reflecting unusual demand for more space unleashed by the pandemic. But year-over-year rent growth slowed to 3.4%. And, in fact, I just heard another story of a massive office building, I think in Fort Worth, that sold for pennies on the dollar of its value. Commercial real estate continue. We've talked about commercial real estate before, which is different than, traditional homeowners. But the real estate market seems to be the thing that is either keeping the Fed from acting or encouraging the Fed to act, and then the real estate market for the commercial scene, an entirely different matter, which I think we talked about just a couple of weeks ago.
Right. Chris, real estate is in a lot of trouble. The only question is, how is the Fed going to deal with it? Are they going to allow prices to come back down to earth, or are they just going to keep inflating it in order to prevent the bubble from bursting? That's the big question. And if you don't think there's a bubble in real estate, remember, there's at least a bubble in realtors. The average realtor this year is going to sell less than 2 homes. How on earth are you sustaining yourself on that kind of sales volume? And yes, I understand that home prices are very, very high today, so your commissions are going to be higher. I get that. But those are simply averages. There's going to be a ton of realtors who sell only 1 home or no homes, and they're selling homes that are much less than the average home price. So that kind of, I think, gives you some context as to just how much of a bubble we're looking at right now. But in terms of what the Fed is looking at, a lot of people don't realize that the different inflation metrics we have, Chris, they don't look at just current rents. Typically, because they don't have big enough surveys, in other words, they can't survey enough people each month to see what current rents are, they're using data that's up to 6 months old. And so the Fed is constantly looking for a 6-month period with lower rents so that they can say, aha, rents have finally come down. Now we have our opportunity to cut rates. The problem is every time that rents start coming down, they're only coming down for a few months, and then they start going right back up again.
Yes.
And so with this roller coaster ride, the trough has yet to be big enough that the Fed can actually cut rates. But they're hoping that they get that before the election.
Yeah. Do you want to see rates cut? I mean, our buddy Steve Moore says he thinks that's just the worst idea, is to cut rates at this point. You?
Yeah, and Steve's 100% right on that. The Fed should not be even talking about cutting rates. What were they doing, just to show how political these folks are? What were they doing in the 3 years under Donald Trump before the pandemic? You had average job growth per month, right, was slower. You had average GDP compared to coming out of the pandemic. It was slower. You had inflation that was lower. So in other words, all the big categories, Chris, that the Fed looks at to decide, should we be hiking rates or should we be cutting rates? They were all looking better under Donald Trump. And except what were they doing? They weren't cutting rates. They raised them. They literally raised them all 3 years, the first 3 years of his presidency. And they were running off the balance sheet, meaning they were selling assets which reduces the money supply. That's contractionary monetary policy. So they were tightening. And today we have exactly the opposite conditions. We have inflation that is still not under control. And what are they talking about? Cutting rates. Why? Because they're completely political. The last thing they should do right now is cut rates.
Well, in fact, that's exactly what the Wall Street Journal's editorial board saying, why Biden is losing on the economy. Democrats searching for a silver lining. Might point to the 5.1% average under Ronald Reagan, who won re-election in a landslide in 1984. But what matters in that case is inflation compared to what it had been. The Gipper campaigned against the Carter inflation, promised to do something about it, and with the help of the Federal Reserve, he did. The average inflation rate fell by half in his first 4 years, and voters could feel it and rewarded him for it. Biden's performance is the opposite. Voters became injured over 6 presidencies, from Reagan to Trump, or to falling or low inflation. Then, all of a sudden, under Biden, inflation surged, hitting a peak of 9.1 on an annual basis, and the president just keeps telling voters inflation has fallen and that things are great. Voters aren't stupid. That's why they don't like Mr. Biden's economic record. So I think that's about right. People just they keep saying how great the economy is, and people don't feel it. I had a story earlier that Walmart is laying off a bunch of new folks and relocating workers. I heard Red Lobster, the restaurant, is closing something like 90 stores. People can't, their dollar is not stretching. Anybody that's gone out to eat lately knows that. Anybody that's bought a tank of gas knows that. It's obvious to anybody that doesn't have a whole lot of money. It's getting tougher to survive out there.
Oh, Chris, 100%. And, it shows you, I think, just how disconnected the elites in Washington are, just how removed these folks are from the American middle class, that they have to rely so much on things like official inflation metrics to have any kind of feel for what the typical American family is going through today. We'll actually get CPI later this morning, I think about 8:30. And, last month it came in at a 3.5% annual rate, meaning officially prices were up 3.5% compared to the same time the year before. I think it's going to be at least as bad this time around. But those are just official metrics. They don't even accurately represent, in my opinion, the reality that a lot of Americans are feeling. Look at housing, for example. Under Biden, according to the official metrics, housing has increased about 20%, except that if you use real-world data, Chris, so look at home prices, look at interest rates, look at things like how much homeowners insurance has gone up, and taxes, property taxes. You put all this together, and you have the median price home. So we're not talking about a mansion here. Just the median price home is 115% more expensive. So it has more than doubled under Biden. I mean, who has an extra $13,000 or $14,000 a year laying around to make those higher monthly payments? And so when Biden comes out and says, oh, inflation was already 9% when I took office, everybody knows that's a lie. Even the news anchor who was nodding her head as Biden said that knew that was a lie. And so people are sick of the gaslighting. You're 100% right, Chris.
Wholesale prices rose 0.5% in April, more than expected. And this from CNBC, they say that this is why it would put another potential roadblock to interest rate cuts anytime soon. What does that mean? I know you said consumer price index coming out. That's been up. How about wholesale prices? What does that mean to us?
So wholesale prices are not the prices that you and I and all the listeners pay when we go to put groceries in the back seat or gas in the tank of the car. These are the prices that the grocery store is paying. These are the prices that the gas station is paying. And so these are really important because it helps us see where our consumer prices going to go. Before we had the huge run up to over 9% inflation under Biden, you had wholesale prices hitting 10%. And so it gave us a very good indicator that consumer prices were also going to be going up and right quick. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Now, wholesale prices tend to be very volatile. And so that's one of the things that businesses actually do for us. A lot of people don't realize is that as prices are going up and down each month, The business tends to keep their prices the same. So some month they make money, some months they lose money, but it all kind of comes out, averages out in the wash. So we are seeing wholesale prices increase at the fastest rate in a year. We haven't seen this kind of annual inflation since April of 2023, and that indicates that we're going to see consumer prices continue to march higher. And once again, we see yet another story that talks about the Fed's rush to cut interest rates. Why the big rush?
Yes.
The big rush is because it's an election year and they want to help Biden.
And to your piece at the Daily Caller about this SALT tax deduction, that's state and local tax, which up to $10,000 under the Trump tax reform bill of 2017, that's set to expire, and Biden's apparently ready to let it. And that's huge, particularly in places like, say, New Jersey or Illinois. You're able to deduct state and local taxes on your income taxes, right, come filing time, and now this will expire, and Biden's going to let it happen. If Trump tax reform expires, you write, marginal tax rates will increase, tax brackets will change, and the state and local tax deduction will again be unlimited despite the higher marginal rates. So explain to us in layman's terms here what that could mean if the Trump tax cuts expire and that SALT tax deduction goes away.
Well, if the Trump tax cuts expire, and really, I fall into this habit too. I keep calling them the Trump tax cut. It was really a tax reform because it made the tax code better. A lot of Americans no longer had to spend hours getting all of their receipts together so that they could itemize their deductions. They could just click one button or check one box for the standard deduction because they doubled the size of the standard deduction. So for the vast majority of Americans, you don't even need to keep track of, again, all those receipts and all those deductions. But on top of that, almost all Americans saw a decrease in their federal tax liability. They owed less in federal taxes. The only people who saw a tax increase were very wealthy, very high income earners, the millionaires and billionaires that Biden always talks about in blue states, in Democrat-run states, places, like you mentioned, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, California, et cetera, places that have very high state and local taxes. And the reason for that was because although their marginal tax rates declined, there was now a cap put in place that they could only deduct $10,000 of state and local taxes. Now, these are people who are paying millions in state and local taxes. So capping that deduction to just $10,000 cost them a lot of money. So contrary to popular belief, this was not the Trump tax cut was not some kind of giveaway to high income earners. It was exactly the opposite. It cost a lot of them more. So what does Biden want to do? He wants to allow the tax cut to expire, and he says, I want billionaires, millionaires to pay their fair share. No, he doesn't. He wants a massive giveaway to his donors. The Democrat donor class are high-income individuals in blue states. And so they're going to get a massive windfall from this to the tune of millions of dollars each. Just as an example, if you look at a typical high-income donor for the Democrats, that's somebody making around $100 million in a place like New York City, that person will see their federal tax liability come down 9%. That is millions of dollars in that person's pocket, a good chunk of which is going to go right back to the DNC in the form of a campaign donation.
Okay, so what you're saying is the state and local tax deduction capped at 10 by Trump would go away and it would become unlimited, meaning people who are high-income earners in these deep blue states could write that off and save tons and tons of money. So it's a windfall. It's Biden's secret windfall to really, really wealthy people.
Exactly. And the really insidious part, Chris, in addition to that great summary you just gave, is the fact that Biden is saying exactly the opposite. He keeps saying how this is going to increase taxes on the wealthy. No, it's not. It's going to be a giveaway to the wealthy, particularly those in Democrat areas.
And finally, a piece you wrote at CNN.com, or I'm sorry, a piece that I want to talk to you about at CNN.com. You didn't write it, but I do want to ask you about it. And that is this Chinese import tariff. Biden's been running around saying, we're taxing it 100%. And everybody was applauding him yesterday. What is this about? taxing Chinese, like EVs particularly. They said they're taxing at 100%. So what's up? Another political move, I guess.
It is, because we actually import almost no EVs from China. We make some here in the United States, but we import most of them from other countries around the world. You know what?
I'm sorry to interrupt you on this, but Trump brought this up at his rally. Trump said that it's unbelievable. China manufactures and partners with places like Mexico. And so these EVs are made in Mexico, and then they're shipped from Mexico into the United States. True?
Exactly. And in addition to that, a lot of what China is doing, because they're the ones with all of the raw materials, they're the ones with the parts, they're manufacturing the parts, they're refining the raw materials for these things. So what they're doing is simply sending those to other countries to be assembled, including here in the United States, by the way. So by putting this huge tariff on Chinese built vehicles, essentially what you're doing is ensuring that those vehicles simply aren't going to be built in China. And if you try to build them here because of the complete imbalance in the trade on things like rare earth minerals coming out of China, coming out of Russia, essentially what you're going to do is give a huge cost increase to the American consumer, anyone who's trying to buy these EVs, but it's going to be yet another giveaway, except this time it's to the Chinese and to the Russians.
So China basically says, well, all right, fine. You slap tariffs on what we make here. We'll just make it in other countries and get it to you that way. Is that the way they get around it?
Certainly. And but the other thing we have to remember, Chris, is that with tariffs, just because you put a tax or a tariff on somebody does not mean they're the one paying the tax.
Right.
If China is our only source for something, then we're going to continue buying from them, even if you put one of these 100% tariffs on. It just means that the American consumer is going to pay much, much more. And so, once again, this was why the tariffs that the Trump administration put in place on China were frankly so brilliant by the folks who designed them. They chose things where the American consumer had an alternative. In other words, if China tried passing the cost on to the American consumer could just buy the same thing, but from somewhere else. And so it forced the Chinese treasury to essentially eat the cost of those tariffs. Here we're doing exactly the opposite.
EJ, your final analysis as we head to the fall, where you think the economy will be. Biden knows, they know the economy's the thing, right? But, I mean, what's interesting is Trump had a great economy and, abortion kind of ruled the day in 2022. Now, maybe the emotion around abortion is not as high, but the economy is much worse. So I'm kind of curious, the dynamic of it. Where do you think, I don't know, if not literally, emotionally, the American people will be with the economy?
Well, one of the things I find very interesting with Trump is that he tends to give a huge boost to down ballot races. He has only been on the ballot twice, and both of those times his party had major victories up and down the ballot. Obviously he won once and then lost once, but his party did incredibly well both of those times. So looking at, this time around, we could probably expect a similar result. In terms of the economy, Chris, this is a tough one because you can avoid a technical recession for a very long time if the government and the consumer are willing to go into enough debt to keep their spending going. And so that doesn't equate, however, to a lower cost of living or a higher standard of living. It's very similar to when World War II ended and everyone predicted, oh my gosh, this is going to be the end of the American economy. Instead, it was an incredible boom. Did GDP fall? Absolutely. It cratered, except everyone reported that they were better off because instead of having millions of American men overseas destroying other people's countries, they came back home and were rebuilding ours. And so you had a huge increase in the standard of living and you had a reduction in the cost of living, even though the official statistics didn't quite match that.
EJ Antoni is a great friend and resource at the Heritage Foundation, one of their great economists, and we always appreciate your insights, EJ. Thank you so much.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.